I wasn't expecting any alerts that morning. Not at 73. Not when your days are measured in quiet routines. Coffee at dawn. The same mug I've used for 20 years. Crossword puzzles at the kitchen table. The occasional phone call from a son you raised with everything you had. That morning started like any other. I was buttering my toast, listening to the birds outside my window, thinking about whether I should water the garden later. Simple things. Safe things. The kind of morning where nothing bad is supposed to happen. But then, my phone vibrated on the counter. I almost didn't look at it. I thought it was just another spam message, but something made me pick it up. And when I read the words on the screen, everything stopped. A large withdrawal has been made from your account. My hand trembled as I read it again. And again. I hadn't taken out any money. Not yesterday. Not last week. I hadn't even been to the bank in over a month. And I certainly hadn't told anyone they could touch what little I had left. My heart started to beat faster. That uncomfortable, uneven rhythm that makes you feel like something is terribly wrong. I set down my coffee. My toast forgotten. I stared at that message, trying to make sense of it. Then, just minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Another alert. My breath caught in my throat. A large withdrawal has been made from your account. The exact same message. The exact same amount. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a mistake. This was happening. Right now, someone was taking my money. I grabbed the edge of the counter to steady myself, my mind racing through possibilities. A hacker? A scam? Some kind of identity theft? But then, a third alert came through, and I knew this was something worse. 3 identical withdrawals, all within the same hour, each one draining a piece of the security I'd spent 40 years building, the money I'd saved penny by penny, the money from my late husband's life insurance, the money I needed for my medications, for my bills, for emergencies. It was disappearing right before my eyes, and I had no idea who was taking it. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. A heavy, uneven rhythm I hadn't felt since the night my husband passed. Since the night I sat beside his hospital bed, holding his hand, watching him take his last breath. That same panic, that same helplessness. Who would do this? Who even knew enough to access my account? I sat down at the kitchen table, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me. For just a moment, I let myself believe it was a mistake, some computer error, a bank glitch that would be fixed with one phone call. Maybe the bank system was down. Maybe it was a technical problem. Maybe everything would be fine. But even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true, because mothers, we know. We feel it in our bones when something is terribly, irreversibly wrong. It's an instinct you can't explain. A warning system built into your soul after years of protecting the people you love. And every part of me was screaming that something was very, very wrong. I grabbed my coat, my purse, my car keys. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped them, and I headed straight to the bank. The drive felt like it took forever. Every red light, every slow driver, every second felt like an eternity. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. What if all my money was gone? What if I couldn't pay my mortgage? What if I couldn't afford my medications? I'm 73 years old. I don't have time to rebuild what I've lost. I don't have the energy to start over. By the time I pulled into the bank parking lot, I felt like I might be sick. The bank was quiet that morning. Just a few customers. The soft hum of fluorescent lights overhead. The teller who helped me was sweet, young enough to be my granddaughter. Bright smile, perfectly polished nails. The kind of girl who probably thought she had her whole life figured out. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you today?" I tried to keep my voice steady. I received some alerts about withdrawals from my account. I didn't make them. I need to know what's happening. Her smile faded slightly. Of course. Let me pull up your account. She typed into her computer. Click, click, click. Her brow furrowing as she scanned the screen. She scrolled, clicked again, and then her expression changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. Confusion and pity. That look you give someone when you know their day is about to get much worse. Ma'am? She hesitated. These withdrawals, they were made in person. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. In person? My voice barely came out, more like a whisper than a question. By who? She looked uncomfortable now, glancing toward the back office, then back at me. 1. I can't give you that information here, but if you'd like, you can review the security footage. We keep recordings of all transactions. My heart was racing now, pounding so hard I thought everyone in the bank could hear it. Yes, I said. Yes, I want to see it. She nodded and stood up. Follow me, please. I followed her through a side door, down a narrow hallway, past offices with closed doors, into a small security room. No windows, just a desk, a computer, and a wall of monitors showing different angles of the bank. She pulled out a chair for me. Please, sit. I sat down on legs that felt like they might give out at any second. She typed something into the computer. What time did you receive the first alert? I checked my phone with trembling hands. 8:47 this morning. She nodded and pulled up the footage. Here we go. The screen showed the bank counter, empty at first. Then a figure walked into frame. She pressed play. And then I saw him, my son, standing right there at that counter, talking to a different teller, smiling, calm, casual, filling out a withdrawal slip like he'd done it 100 times before. He handed over his ID. The teller processed the transaction. My son took the cash, folded it carefully, put it in his jacket pocket, and walked away. I watched in frozen silence as the timestamp moved forward. 10 minutes later, he came back. Same counter, same process. Another withdrawal, same amount. He didn't look nervous, didn't look rushed, didn't look guilty. He looked comfortable, like this was his money, like he had every right to take it, like I didn't even exist. And then, a third time, I watched my son walk up to that counter, fill out another slip, take more of my money, and walk out of the bank without a single glance back. I couldn't breathe, couldn't blink, couldn't do anything but stare at that screen, watching my own child steal from me. The teller's voice broke through the fog. Ma'am, are you okay? Would you like some water? I shook my head. I couldn't speak, because water doesn't fix betrayal. Water doesn't heal the kind of wound that comes from watching someone you love, someone you raised, someone you sacrificed everything for, take from you without hesitation, without guilt, without even a moment of doubt. Do you know this person? The teller asked gently. I nodded slowly. Yes. My voice sounded hollow, empty. That's my son. She looked shocked. Your son? I'm so sorry, ma'am. Do you want to file a report? We can contact the police. No, I said quickly. Too quickly. No police. Not yet. Because how do you call the police on your own child? How do you tell a stranger that the person you gave life to, the person you raised, the person you loved more than anything in this world, has stolen from you? I stood up, my legs shaking. Thank you for showing me. Why? I need to go. The teller looked worried. Are you sure you're okay to drive? I'm fine, I lied. I wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. But I needed to get out of that room, away from those screens, away from the image of my son that kept replaying in my mind. I walked back through the bank in a daze, past the customers waiting in line, past the woman at the information desk, past the security guard at the door, out into the parking lot. The bright morning sun felt wrong. Too cheerful, too normal. How could the world just keep moving when mine had just fallen apart? I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing. There are moments in life when everything you believed in crumbles. Every sacrifice you made, every sleepless night when they were sick, every time you went without so they could have more, every birthday cake you baked from scratch, every scraped knee you kissed better, every nightmare you chased away, every time you told them you loved them, every time you believed you were building something strong, something unbreakable. This was one of those moments when you realized that maybe you didn't know them as well as you thought, or maybe they didn't know you at all. On the drive home, I tried to make sense of it. Maybe he's in trouble. Maybe he owes someone money. Maybe he's being threatened. Maybe he was too ashamed to ask for help. Maybe there's an explanation, a good reason, something that will make this okay. But my hands were shaking on the steering wheel, because if it was innocent, if there was a good reason, why didn't he just ask me? Why didn't he call and say, "Mom, I need help"? I would have given him anything, everything. He had to know that, so why hide it? Why sneak? Why take from me like a stranger in the night? And why, when I pulled over and called him 3 times from the side of the road, did every single call go straight to voicemail? I left a message after the 3rd attempt, my voice shaking. "It's Mom. I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me back." I waited 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Nothing. Not a text. Not a callback. Nothing. By the time I got home, I felt like a stranger in my own life. I walked through my front door, the house I'd lived in for 30 years, the house where I'd raised my children, where I'd celebrated birthdays and Christmases, where I'd mourned my husband. It all looked the same, but everything felt different. I made myself a cup of tea, not because I wanted it, but because I needed something to do with my hands. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where my son used to do his homework, where we used to have family dinners, where he used to tell me about his day, back when he still told me things. Back when I thought I knew him, I called him again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. I sent a text. "Please call me. I know what you did." I watched the screen, watched the delivered change to read. He saw it. He read it. And he still didn't respond. That night, I couldn't sit still. I paced through my house, living room to kitchen, kitchen to bedroom, bedroom back to living room. Every few minutes, I checked my phone. Nothing. I tried to eat dinner. Couldn't. I tried to watch TV. Couldn't focus. All I could see was that security footage. My son's face. So calm. So casual. Taking my money like it meant nothing. By 8 p.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys, my coat, and I drove to his house. The one I helped him buy. The one where I'd spent countless hours babysitting my grandchildren. The one that used to feel like a second home. The drive took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of rehearsing what I would say. 20 minutes of trying to stay calm. 20 minutes of my heart pounding in my chest. When I pulled up to his house, all the lights were on. His car was in the driveway. I knew he was home. I walked up to the front door, raised my hand to knock, and hesitated. What if he slams the door in my face? What if he lies? What if he doesn't care? But I knocked anyway. Once, twice. I heard footsteps inside. Then the door opened. But it wasn't my son. It was her, my daughter-in-law. And the look on her face, it wasn't warmth. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't the smile she usually gave me. It was annoyance. Pure, undisguised annoyance. Like I was an unwelcome guest. Like I was interrupting something. "Mom," her voice was flat, cold. "What are you doing here?" I stared at her. This woman I'd welcomed into our family with open arms. This woman I'd helped with her wedding. This woman I'd supported through 2 difficult pregnancies. This woman I'd loved like my own daughter. And now she was looking at me like I was a stranger. "I need to talk to him," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's important." She didn't move, didn't open the door wider, just stood there, blocking the entrance. "He's busy right now. Can you come back another time?" "No," I said firmly. "No, I can't. I need to talk to him now." Something shifted in her expression. A flash of, what? Anger? Fear? Guilt? "Mom, you really shouldn't just show up like this. You should call first." "I did call," I said. "I called 6 times today." He didn't answer. She crossed her arms. "Well, he's dealing with something right now. I'm sure he'll call you when he has time." And then she did something I never expected. She stepped back and started to close the door. "Wait," I said, but she shook her head. "I'm sorry, but now's not a good time. You need to go." I put my hand on the door. Please, just let me talk to him for 5 minutes. I'm his mother." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes made my blood run cold. It wasn't sympathy. It wasn't understanding. It was contempt. "He doesn't want to see you right now." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "He doesn't want to see you. Please leave." And then, without another word, she closed the door. Not slammed it, just closed it. Quietly, firmly. Finally, I stood there on that porch, alone in the dark, the porch light casting long shadows, the sound of a TV inside, laughter. They were laughing. While I stood outside in the cold, begging for answers. I raised my hand to knock again, but I couldn't do it. My hand just froze there. Because suddenly I realized they knew I was out here. They knew I was standing on their porch, in the cold, in the dark, and they didn't care. I walked back to my car slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. I sat in the driver's seat, and for the first time that day, I cried. Not quiet tears, but deep, gut-wrenching sobs, the kind that shake your whole body, the kind that come from a place so deep you didn't know it existed. I cried for the money. I cried for the betrayal. But mostly, I cried because my own son wouldn't even face me, wouldn't even give me the courtesy of an explanation, wouldn't even look me in the eye. I sat there in that car for almost an hour, watching the lights in his house, watching shadows move past the windows. My family, so close, and yet completely unreachable. A mother knows when she's being lied to. And that night, everything about them was a lie. Part 2, the investigation. I couldn't sleep that night, not even close. Every time I closed my eyes, the same image burned behind my eyelids. My son, standing at that bank counter, so calm, so practiced, withdrawing my money with the ease of someone who'd done it before, who planned to do it again. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., my mind racing through possibilities, through explanations, through excuses, but none of them made sense. None of them explained why he would hide it, why he would ignore my calls, why his wife would close the door in my face. By the time the sun started to rise, painting my bedroom in shades of gold, I couldn't appreciate. I had made a decision. If my son wouldn't tell me the truth, if my daughter-in-law would slam doors in my face, then I would find the truth myself. That morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I became a detective in my own life. I drove to their house at 7 a.m., parked down the street, far enough that they wouldn't notice my car, but close enough to see their front door. I felt ridiculous, a 73-year-old woman, sitting in her car like some kind of spy, watching her own family. But what choice did I have? They'd left me with no other options. At 7:30, my son came out, got in his car, and drove away, probably to work. His normal routine, like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't stolen from his own mother. I followed him, keeping a safe distance, my heart pounding, but he just went to his office, parked, went inside, nothing unusual. So I waited. I sat in that parking lot for 3 hours, drinking bad coffee from a thermos, watching the entrance. At noon, he came out for lunch, went to a sandwich shop, then back to work. Still nothing. By 5 p.m., when he left for the day, I was exhausted, frustrated, ready to give up. But then, he didn't go home. Instead of turning toward his neighborhood, he turned the opposite direction, toward the highway. I followed, my hands gripping the steering wheel. This was it. This was something. He drove for 20 minutes, out of the suburbs, past the shopping centers, past the parks, into an area I barely recognized. Older buildings, empty lots, broken streetlights. He finally pulled off into an industrial area, warehouses and storage facilities, places that looked abandoned. My stomach tightened. What was he doing here? He parked beside a building with a rusted metal door, the kind of place you see in movies, the kind that makes you nervous just looking at it. I parked far enough away that he wouldn't see me, and I watched. He got out of his car, looked around, left, right, over his shoulder, like he was making sure no one was watching. But I was watching. Mothers always watch. We just know when to stay invisible. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out a key, and opened that rusted metal door. He slipped inside, and the door closed behind him with a heavy clang. I sat there in my car, engine off, breath fogging up the windshield, staring at that door. What is this place? Why would my son come here? What could possibly be inside that building? I waited 5 minutes, then 10, my mind spinning with possibilities. Was he meeting someone? Was this where he was hiding the money? Was he in some kind of trouble? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I stepped out into the cold evening air. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the empty parking lot, making everything look darker, more ominous. I walked toward that door, each step echoing in the silence, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. When I reached the door, I hesitated. What if he sees me? What if I'm putting myself in danger? What if I'm wrong about everything? But I'd come this far. I couldn't turn back now. I pressed my ear against the cold metal. At first, nothing, just silence. Then, a faint sound, a cough. Weak, rough, the kind of cough that comes from deep in the lungs. I held my breath, listening harder. There was movement inside. A shuffle, the creak of a chair. Someone was in there. Someone besides my son. My mind raced. Who was it? What was my son doing? I tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was locked, but there was a narrow gap between the two metal doors. Just a sliver, maybe an inch wide, and through that gap, light spilled out. Warm, yellow, the light of a lamp. I leaned in closer, positioned myself just right, and peered through that narrow opening. What I saw made my heart stop. This wasn't an empty warehouse. This wasn't a storage space. This was someone's home. A small cot sat against the far wall, thin mattress, worn blankets folded neatly, a folding table beside it. On the table, bottles, medication bottles, at least a dozen of them, lined up in neat rows. I could see labels, pills, prescriptions. There was a small electric heater in the corner, a lamp on a crate, a wool blanket draped over a chair, a pair of old slippers beside the bed, worn, loved, the kind someone wears every day. This wasn't temporary. This was someone's home. Someone was living here, in this cold, dark warehouse, hidden away from the world. And my son had the key. I stepped back from the door, my mind reeling. Who was inside? Why were they here? Why was my son keeping this secret? Was he hiding someone? Was he helping them? Or was this something darker? Suddenly, I heard footsteps inside. Getting closer, I panicked, ducked behind a dumpster, pressed myself against the cold metal, praying he wouldn't see me. The door opened. My son stepped out. He locked it carefully, tested the handle twice, then looked around one more time. His face. In the dim light, I could see his expression. He looked tired, worried, burdened, like he was carrying something heavy, something he couldn't put down. He walked to his car, got in, and drove away. I waited until his taillights disappeared. Then I walked back to that door, placed my hand on the cold metal surface. Someone was inside, right on the other side of this door. Someone my son was hiding. Someone he was taking care of with my money. I whispered to the door, so quietly I wasn't even sure I said it out loud. "Who are you?" But of course, there was no answer, just silence, and the weight of questions I didn't know how to ask. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that room, that cot, those medication bottles. Someone was living there, hidden away, and my son was involved. Part 3. The second visit. The next evening, I went back. I couldn't help myself. I had to know more. I had to understand. This time, I knew what to expect. I knew my son would come, around the same time, like clockwork. So I got there early, parked in the same spot, and waited. Sure enough, at 6:15 p.m., his car pulled up. He got out, looked around, opened the door, went inside. I waited 20 minutes this time. I watched the sun set completely, watched the sky turn from orange to purple to black, watched the streetlights flicker on one by one. When his car finally left, I waited an extra 10 minutes, just to be sure. Then I approached the door. This time, I didn't just listen. This time, I knocked. Gently. Once. Twice. No answer. My heart was pounding. What if no one responds? What if I'm wrong? I knocked again. A little louder this time. Hello? My voice barely above a whisper. Is anyone in there? For a full minute. Nothing. Just silence. I was about to give up, about to walk away, when I heard it. A voice. Weak. Fragile. Barely audible through the metal door. Who is it? I felt my heart stop. It was real. Someone was really in there. An older man. From the sound of it. Old and sick. I pressed my hand against the door. Sir, my name is Margaret. Are you okay? Do you need help? There was a long pause. I could hear breathing on the other side. Labored. Difficult. Then the man spoke again. You shouldn't be here. His voice was filled with fear. Real, genuine fear. He'll be angry if he finds out. He told me, no one can come, no one can know. My blood ran cold. Who will be angry? I asked gently. The young man? The one who brings you food? Another pause. Yes, the man whispered. He takes care of me. He pays for everything. But he said, no one can know I'm here. No one. I felt tears forming in my eyes. Who was this man? Why was he so afraid? Sir, are you sick? I asked. Do you need a doctor? I heard him cough. That same rough, painful cough from before. I have medicine, he said. He brings it. Every day. He's good to me. There was something in his voice. Gratitude. But also sadness. But you're alone here? I said. That's not right. Let me help you. No. The man's voice suddenly became urgent. Panicked. No, you can't. You can't tell anyone, he said. If people find out, they'll take me away. They'll put me somewhere bad. Please, please, just go. His fear was so real, so raw. It broke my heart. Okay, I said softly. Okay, I won't tell anyone. But, what's your name? Silence. For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, William. The name hit me like a punch to the stomach. William. My late husband's name. William, the first repeated. That's a good name. How long have you been here? I don't remember, he said, his voice fading. Time, it's hard to know. Months, maybe? He found me when I was on the streets. Gave me this place, food, medicine. He saved me. My mind was racing. My son found a homeless man, brought him here, was taking care of him. But why hide it? Why keep it secret? Why not tell me? William, the first said gently, the young man who helps you. Do you know his name? He just says to call him son. My breath caught. Son. Does he? I swallowed hard. Does he visit you every day? Yes, William said. Every evening. Brings food. Checks my medicine. Talks to me sometimes. His voice softened. He's kind. He tells me stories. About his family. About his mother. I pressed my forehead against the cold door. Tears streaming down my face now. What does he say about his mother? William was quiet for a moment. He says, she's the strongest person he knows. He says, he learned everything from her. He says, he hopes she'd be proud of what he's doing. Something inside me broke open. Before I could say anything else, I heard something that made my blood freeze. A car engine. Getting closer, headlights swept across the building. Someone's coming, William whispered urgently. You have to go. Now, he can't find you here. Please? I stumbled backward, my heart slamming in my chest. I ran, not gracefully, not quietly, just ran back to my car, dove into the driver's seat, ducked down. Through the window, I watched. My son's car pulled up, but he didn't get out right away. He sat there for a moment, head in his hands, like he was gathering strength, or maybe like he was carrying a weight too heavy to bear alone. Then he got out, opened the trunk, pulled out 2 grocery bags, and went inside. I sat there in my car, in the dark, my mind spinning. My son was taking care of someone, a homeless man named William, keeping him safe, fed, medicated, hidden, using my money, without telling me. But why? Why hide it? What was he afraid of? I drove home that night with more questions than answers. But one thing was becoming clear. Whatever my son was doing, it wasn't malicious. It wasn't selfish. It was something else. Something I didn't understand yet. But something that was costing him, emotionally, financially, maybe even spiritually. Part 4. The Confrontation. I barely slept that night. Images kept flashing through my mind. That warehouse room, William's frightened voice, my son, sitting in his car with his head in his hands, the medication bottles, the careful way my son locked that door, the weight in his shoulders. By the time morning came, I knew what I had to do. No more following, no more watching from a distance. It was time to face him, time to demand the truth, even if I wasn't ready to hear it. I drove to his house at 8 a.m., early enough that he'd still be home, early enough that he couldn't avoid me. I didn't call ahead, didn't give him warning. I just showed up. And this time, I wasn't leaving without answers. I walked up to the front door, my heart pounding, my hands shaking, but my resolve solid as stone. I knocked. Firm, loud, the kind of knock that says, "I'm not going away." I heard movement inside, footsteps. Then the door opened. My son stood there, still in his pajamas, coffee mug in hand, eyes widening when he saw me. "Mom, what are you doing here? I'm late for work." "No," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You're not going anywhere, not until we talk." He looked panicked, glanced behind him into the house. "Mom, please, not this morning. I really can't." "I followed you," I said. The words hung in the air between us, heavy, final. His face went pale, completely drained of color. The coffee mug trembled in his hand. For a moment, he couldn't speak, couldn't move, just stood there, staring at me, like his worst fear had just come true. "What?" he finally whispered. "I followed you," I repeated, "to the warehouse. I know about William." He closed his eyes, set down his coffee mug on the small table by the door. Then he stepped outside, closed the door gently behind him. "Please," he said, his voice breaking, "please, don't do this here. My family is still sleeping." I nodded. We walked to the end of his driveway, stood under the big oak tree in his front yard, the same tree we'd planted together when he first bought this house, when everything was simpler, when I thought I knew my son. "Mom," he started, but his voice failed him. He turned away, wiped his eyes. I could see his shoulders shaking. "Tell me," I said softly. "Please, just tell me the truth." He took a deep breath, turned back to face me, and then he spoke words I never expected to hear. "Mom, he's my brother." The world stopped spinning. Everything went silent. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "Your what?" "My brother," he repeated, his voice shaking. "William is. He's my brother. Half-brother, technically. Dad had another child. Before he met you." The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. "What are you talking about?" My voice barely a whisper. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small envelope, old, wrinkled, the edges yellowed with time. "Dad left this for me," he said. "In his will." A sealed letter, with instructions that only I could read it. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded carefully. The handwriting! I recognized it instantly. My late husband's handwriting. That distinctive slant. The way he made his R's. It was definitely his. My son's voice cracked as he read it aloud. "To my son, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I've left you with a burden I should have carried myself. Many years ago, before I met your mother, I had a relationship with a woman named Elizabeth. We were young, foolish. When she became pregnant, I was scared. I ran. I'm not proud of it. It's the worst thing I've ever done. Elizabeth had the baby alone. A boy. She named him William, after her father. For years, I told myself it was better if I stayed away, that they didn't need me, that I'd only make things worse. But the truth is, I was a coward. I built a new life, met your mother, had you and your sister, and I tried to forget about William. But I never could. 5 years ago, I hired a private investigator, found him. He was homeless, living on the streets, suffering from schizophrenia, no family, no help, no hope. I wanted to tell your mother. I wanted to bring him into our lives, but I was afraid of losing everything, afraid of hurting the people I loved. So I stayed silent, and now I'm out of time. Son, if anything happens to me, find him, take care of him. He is alone in this world. He's your brother, and he deserves better than what I gave him. Please, don't let him be forgotten. Don't let my cowardice define his whole life. I'm sorry I'm asking you to carry what I couldn't. But I trust you. I trust your heart. Love, Dad. By the time my son finished reading, we were both crying. I felt like the ground had opened up beneath me. My husband. The man I'd spent 42 years with. The man I'd loved more than anything. The man I'd buried 3 years ago. He'd had another child, a son, and he'd kept it secret from me, from everyone, for decades. I didn't know what to do, my son said, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. When I first read this letter, I was so angry at him, angry that he'd hidden this, angry that he'd left it for me to fix. He looked at me with red, swollen eyes. But then I found William, and Mom, he was dying. I searched for 3 months, my son continued, following leads from the PI Dad had hired, tracking down shelters, asking around, finally found him under a bridge downtown. His voice broke. He was so thin, so sick, talking to people who weren't there, wearing clothes that were falling apart. When I told him who I was, when I told him I was his brother, he didn't believe me at first, thought I was another hallucination. My son sat down on the grass, head in his hands. I couldn't leave him there, Mom. I couldn't. But I also couldn't just bring him home. He panics around crowds. Loud noises terrify him. He doesn't trust people. If I tried to put him in a facility, he'd run. He's run before, multiple times. So I found that warehouse space, he said. It's quiet, isolated, safe. I bought him a bed, a heater, got him enrolled in a program for his medication, started visiting every single day, bringing food, clean clothes, just being there. He looked up at me, and slowly, Mom, he's getting better. He's gained weight. He's taking his medication. He's started to trust me. He tells me stories about his childhood, about Elizabeth, about how he always wondered about his father, about us. Tears streamed down my son's face. I was going to tell you. I swear I was, but I didn't know how. How do I tell you that Dad had this whole other life, this whole other son? How do I break your heart like that? And the money? I whispered, my voice barely audible. He nodded, shame flooding his face. The medication is expensive. The rent for the space. The food. The clothes. I've been using my savings, but it ran out. I have 2 kids in college, Mom. The mortgage. Everything else. I didn't know what else to do. He covered his face with his hands. I was going to ask you. I was going to explain everything. But every time I tried, I couldn't find the words. I was so afraid of hurting you, of making you hate Dad, of ruining all the good memories. His shoulders shook with sobs. So I took the money, without asking. I know it was wrong. I know I betrayed your trust. But I couldn't let him die on the streets, Mom. I couldn't. He's my brother. We sat there under that oak tree for a long time, neither of us speaking, just sitting with the weight of it all. The secrets, the lies, the fear, the love that had driven all of it. Finally, I reached over and took my son's hand. You should have told me, I said softly. Secrets grow heavier when you carry them alone. He looked at me. Surprised? You're not angry? I smiled through my tears. Oh, I'm angry. Angry at your father for being a coward. Angry at you for lying. Angry at this whole situation. I squeezed his hand. But mostly, I'm heartbroken that you thought you had to do this alone, that you couldn't trust me with the truth. I'm your mother. And William. I took a shaky breath. William is family. Even if I didn't know it. Even if your father hid it. He's family. I want to meet him, I said. My son looked uncertain. Mom, I don't know if that's a good idea. He's very fragile right now. New people make him anxious. I don't care, I said firmly. He's my husband's son. He's your brother. He's part of this family. And I need to meet him. My son hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay, but we have to be gentle, patient. He might not understand at first. We drove to the warehouse that evening. Together. My heart was pounding the entire way. What do you say to your husband's secret son? How do you apologize for decades of absence that weren't your fault? How do you build a bridge across a lifetime of separation? When we arrived, my son parked, turned to me. Mom, before we go in, you should know. He doesn't look well. He's better than he was, but he's still very thin. His illness, it's affected him. Just be prepared. I nodded, but nothing could have prepared me. My son unlocked the door. William? He called gently. It's me. I brought someone to meet you. Is that okay? There was a pause. Then that weak voice I'd heard before. Who? Someone very special, my son said. Someone who wants to help. We stepped inside. The space was small, dimly lit by a single lamp, but it was clean, organized. My son had clearly worked hard to make it livable. And there, on the cot, sat William. He was thin, so thin. His clothes hung off his frame. His hair was gray and unkempt, his face hollow. But his eyes were the same color as my husband's, that same deep brown. I felt my breath catch. William looked at me with fear. Confusion? Who is she? He asked my son. My son knelt beside him. William, this is Margaret. She's my mother. She's the woman our father married. William's eyes widened. Your father? My father? He looked at me. Really looked at me. You knew him? I stepped forward slowly, carefully. Yes, I said softly. I knew him. For a very long time. William's eyes filled with tears. Was he good? The question broke my heart. Yes, I said. He wasn't perfect. But he was good. He made mistakes. Big ones. But he loved deeply. And he thought about you. Near the end. He thought about you. I knelt down beside the cot, on William's level. I'm so sorry, I said. Sorry for everything you've been through. Sorry that you were alone for so long. Sorry that we didn't find you sooner. William stared at me. Then, slowly, he reached out his hand. I took it gently. His skin was rough, weathered, but his grip was surprisingly strong. You look like him, he whispered. Around the eyes. I smiled through my tears. You look like him too. We sat there for a long moment, holding hands, strangers, and yet, family. I have something for you, I said. I reached into my purse, pulled out a small photo album I'd brought. These are pictures of your father, of our family, of the life he built. I opened the album slowly. William leaned in, his eyes wide. The first photo was of my wedding day. My husband, young and handsome in his suit. Me in my white dress. William's fingers touched the photo gently. He looks happy, he whispered. He was, I said. I turned the page. Photos of our children as babies. Birthdays, Christmases, family vacations. William looked at each one carefully, studying every detail. He had a good life, William said quietly. There was no bitterness in his voice, just sadness. I'm glad he was happy. William, the first said gently, you're part of this family. You always were, even if we didn't know it. And from now on, you won't be alone anymore. He looked at me with such hope, such fragile, desperate hope. Really, I said firmly. We're going to take care of you. Together. William started to cry then, silent tears streaming down his face. My son wrapped his arms around him, and I held both of them. This broken, beautiful family that was finally becoming whole. That night, we made a plan. William couldn't stay in the warehouse forever. It wasn't right. It wasn't safe. But he also couldn't handle a big change all at once. So we'd take it slow, step by step. Over the next 2 weeks, I visited William every day, sometimes with my son, sometimes alone. I brought him home-cooked meals, photo albums, stories about his father, about the family he came from. Slowly, William began to open up. He told me about his mother, Elizabeth, how she'd died when he was 23, how he'd spiraled after that, lost his job, lost his apartment, lost himself to the voices in his head. He told me about the years on the street, the shelters that kicked him out when he got too difficult, the hospitals that discharged him with nowhere to go, the people who hurt him, the people who ignored him, the slow, grinding erosion of hope. But he also told me about the small kindnesses, the stranger who bought him coffee once, the shelter worker who learned his name, the doctor who actually listened, and my son, his brother, who found him when he'd given up on ever being found. He saved my life, William said one evening. I was ready to die, thought maybe that would be easier. But then he showed up, and he kept showing up every single day. Like I mattered. William looked at me with tears in his eyes. No one ever made me feel like I mattered before. 3 weeks after I first met William, we brought him home. Not to my house. Not yet. That would be too much. But to my son's house. We'd converted the basement into a small apartment. Private, quiet, but connected to family. William was terrified. What if they don't want me there? He asked. What if I'm too much trouble? You're not trouble, I said firmly. You're family. When we pulled up to the house, my son's wife was waiting on the porch. She'd been shocked when my son finally told her the truth, angry about the lies, hurt by the secrets. But when she understood, when she really understood, she'd cried, and then she'd rolled up her sleeves. Let's bring him home, she'd said. Now, as we helped William out of the car, she came down the steps, smiled warmly. William, she said, welcome home. He looked at her uncertainly. I'm sorry, he said, for the trouble, for the money, for everything. She shook her head. You have nothing to apologize for. Then she did something beautiful. She hugged him, gently, carefully, but sincerely. Welcome to the family, she whispered. We showed William his new space, the clean bed with fresh sheets, the dresser with new clothes we'd bought, the small kitchenette, the bathroom, the TV. This is all for me? He asked, his voice full of disbelief. All yours, my son said, for as long as you need it. William sat on the edge of the bed, ran his hand over the soft comforter, and smiled. A real, genuine smile. The first one I'd seen from him. I never thought, he started, his voice breaking. I never thought I'd have a home again. That night, we had dinner together, all of us, my son's family, William, and me. It was awkward at first. William didn't know how to use some of the utensils, didn't understand all our jokes, got overwhelmed when everyone talked at once. But my grandchildren, they were patient, kind. They asked William questions about his life, about what he liked, about what made him happy. And slowly, William relaxed, started to participate, started to belong. After dinner, I sat with him on the back porch, just the two of us, looking up at the stars. "Margaret," he said quietly. "Yes? Why are you doing this? You didn't have to. I'm nothing to you." I turned to look at him. "You're not nothing. You're my husband's son. You're my son's brother. You're family." And family. I took his hand. Family takes care of each other. Even when it's hard, even when it's complicated, even when we've been apart for too long. William squeezed my hand. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for seeing me." 6 months later, William has been living with my son's family for 6 months now. It hasn't been easy. There have been bad days. Days when his illness makes everything harder. Days when he can't leave his room. Days when the voices come back. But there have been more good days. Days when he joins us for dinner. Days when he plays with his nephews and nieces. Days when he laughs. Days when he seems at peace. He's gained weight. His eyes are clearer. He takes his medication regularly. He sees a therapist twice a week. He's even started volunteering at a soup kitchen, helping others who are where he once was. Last week, we had a small gathering, a celebration. William's birthday, his 60th birthday. He told us he couldn't remember the last time anyone celebrated his birthday. We made him a cake, hung decorations, sang to him, and when he blew out the candles, he cried. "I spent 40 years alone," he said, "thinking I didn't matter, thinking no one would miss me if I disappeared." He looked around the room, at all of us. "But now I have a family. Now I have a home. Now I matter." My son stood up, raised his glass. "To William," he said, "my brother, who taught us that family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up, about caring, about never giving up on each other." We all raised our glasses. "To William." Later that night, as everyone was leaving, William pulled me aside. "Margaret," he said, "I want you to know, your husband, our father, he may not have been there for me, but he raised a son who was. He raised someone who had the courage he didn't have. So in a way, he did right by me, just not in the way either of us expected." I hugged him tight. "He would be proud," I whispered, "so proud of both of you." Life is strange. Sometimes the family we never knew we had becomes the family we were always meant to love. And forgiveness. Not anger. Not bitterness. Not resentment. Forgiveness is what builds a home strong enough to hold everyone inside it. Strong enough to hold the secrets, the mistakes, the pain, and still make room for love. My husband kept a secret that changed everything. But maybe he knew that someday we'd find our way to each other. Maybe that letter was his way of building a bridge, even after he was gone. Before you go, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that families are messy and complicated and beautiful all at once, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means these stories keep getting told, and that matters more than you know. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are never too old to discover a new kind of family or a new chapter of love. You are never too old to forgive, to rebuild, to start again, because sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we piece together from broken parts.